Welcome back, everybody. My name is Lube, and welcome back to what some people are calling episode 2 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, a podcast all for Trekkies, Trekkers, and absolutely everything in between. I've mentioned this before, but we are brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond with an obsession with about a little game called Star Trek Fleet Command. But rest assured, this is not a podcast all about that one particular game. This is all about, for Star Trek fans, where we discuss Star Trek in general. We are going to explore a topic from both Star Trek and from Star Trek Fleet Command on every single show. We want this amazing community to be able to get involved, so you have the power to control the conversation. We want you to offer us suggestions for both Star Trek commentary and both STFC segments that you want the Brits and Yanks Talk Trek team to discuss on future episodes. So if you want to make suggestions, join our Discord, and then you can chat with the whole team there. The link to that is in the episode description, so you can come and join us and chat with us all. And without further ado, I think it's about right for us to talk about the rest of the team that are here with us today. So we've got Mr. Perfection himself. We have got Silvus, the man who corrects me more than anybody else ever has in my life. Good evening to you, Silvus.
Hey, Luke, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you, mate. You had a good day?
Oh, yeah, had a great day.
Tremendous. We've also got Stewie, the storyteller do. We say that because he has got the most brilliant storytelling voice in the world. Everybody could sit and listen to him, and it would quite happily put you to sleep. How are you, Stewie do?
Howdy, partner.
See, how can that not make you want to go to sleep? And we have got Minnie, the Tribble mother herself. And if you don't understand that reference, you'll have to go back and listen to episode 1. How are you, Minnie?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Absolutely superb. What do you think of your new nickname?
I love it. Yeah. I'll take that.
The mother of Tribbles. Candy cannot be with us tonight. The Al King of the graphic. He can't be with us tonight, but hopefully he'll be with us on future episodes. And as mentioned, we are going to be doing a STFC topic. We have got a brand new segment for you, so stay tuned for that. And then we've also got our Star Trek topic as well. We're going to start off with, as we normally do, we're going to start off with our Star Trek Fleet Command topic. And tonight we're going to talk about something which I think has become less controversial over the last 6 to 12 months, but something that was a very, very controversial statement or subject or topic of about 12 months ago. But I think more and more people are coming around to my reasoning that I had even 12 to 24 months ago. We're going to talk about camping at 39. And my advice to people about camping at 39 is quite simply in one word: don't do it anymore. But we're going to explore a little bit more about why not to camp at 39 anymore. So, Silvus, I think you're on the same train as me, but what's your initial thoughts?
I am somewhat in between, actually. I understand your point of view, and I definitely lean more towards it. But I want to make sure that players are camping at 39 just long enough to where you're just ready to get into the 40s. I don't want players to be extensively camping months and months on end, or longer in the cases of some specific players out there. To the point where they're not going into the 40s. I don't want that. But I do know what you mean when you say that you're going into the 40s early to get more G4 resources, which is absolutely correct.
It is. And I think even the whole phraseology of the word camping, I think that's even something that probably needs a little bit more exploration, because camping generally meant, as Silvus just said there, it meant sitting there for literally months on end. And in a game where sort of promoting your ops is one of the key things driving what you can then do next, it drives your ships, it drives your refinery levels, which then drives your progression and the research and all that sort of thing that you can do. That progression is really important. And Silvus makes, again, one of the biggest points that I make about not necessarily camping at 39, or even, as we like to call it, mini branded this months ago, a strategic stopping point. And there are different strategic stopping points as opposed to camping, because camping would insinuate that you're going to be there for a hell of a long time. But anybody that doesn't know, when you change generation in STFC, so when you go from 39 to 40, when you go from 50 up to 51, when you go from 60 up to 61, you cross a generation boundary, whoever that be, from G3 to G4, 4 to 5, or 5 to 6 in those examples that I've just given you. And it opens up a whole world of brand new materials to you. So obviously the next grade of materials. Now, even though things like the refinery, when you're really early doors in your progression in a generation, generation may only pay out common. Like, for example, if you are a 51 or a 61, as I am in the game, I'm only getting commons from my refinery. I'm not even getting uncommons from it. But what I am getting uncommons for is things such as events and battle passes. So I'm starting to accrue that. And you think if you sit at 39 for 3 months, then you're not getting any G4 resources really, unless you're able to do things like the Jelly Brawl event, which does pay G4 materials. I don't know if I can't remember if Parabellum pays it. Can't remember if any of the other panelists know if it does pay that.
The Parabellum event pays a little bit. If you're sitting at 39, the most G4 you're going to get is from scrapping the level 34 or the level 26 ships, which you can scrap at level 34. That's going to be the most that you're going to get, which isn't the best way, especially if you're just using those resources to sit at 39 and scrap as opposed to going to 40 and getting those resources really easily.
Yeah, because I mean, I make a bold claim here, and that claim is that if from 39 to 40, once you go to 40, one battle pass run will actually get you enough now in today's game to complete every single G4 prime from one battle pass from what you get in your rewards. So rather than sitting and spending your G3 materials scrapping ships to get the primes at 37, 38, 39, my advice to lots of people is not to scrap ships at all in the 30s. Spend them on getting your research ready, getting your your G3 epics up, like your Enterprise, your Augur, getting those sort of things up to a decent-ish level. And rather than ploughing them into a Mayflower to scrap to get a couple of primes done, because 1 month at 40 will actually get you enough uncommon materials and even rare materials for you to be able to crack on and do all of the G4 research that's needed. So even the scrapping argument's not really there at the G3 level. What's your initial
And
thoughts? Sorry, go on, Silvers.
And while you're on the topic of primes, once you get into the 40s, there are a couple that take epic resources, and you might not get those from events or battle passes or even scrapping, but you can get that from the 7 and 30-day chests, and you can easily complete those researches as well. So, like Loop said, any G4 prime you can easily unlock just by going into the 40s.
Absolutely. And crossing generation is really important for things like that. Like if you're a spender, saving your multiphasics, if you're close to crossing a generation, can be significant for you. And also saving your 7 and 30-day chests up, because when you do cross generation, you're going to get all these new materials. And if you've got 2-3 months worth of 30-day chests and 7-day chests, it's going to be a huge influx even on day one if you're able to save those sort of things up. Stewie, what's your take on the 39 camping strategic stopping point argument?
It used to be that it was fine, but the game itself has changed, and with it has that advice. Basically, I genuinely believe, in general, it's not a good idea, and there's only really one thing that should keep you at a level, and that's the requirements of what you need to do at the next level. You need to assess whether you can do them, i.e., swarm requirements, daily requirements, silent requirements, Cindy, that sort of stuff. If you can do them, you have no reason to stop. If you can't, then fine. Get yourself bolstered up, get to a point where you can hit those targets, then move up. But I think that that's really the only thing that should stop you from moving forward is your requirements, your tasks.
Agreed. And I think the pace of progression, like the ability to get to 39, I mean, I think another great content creator, Tiberius, he was able to do Ops 1 through to Ops 39 in about 9 months as a free-to-play. And yes, he's an experienced player, he knows what he's doing, but he was able to get there really quick. And what that can do is that can stump your growth in other areas, such as officers and stuff like that. But obviously, we're talking purely from a materials, progression, ships, loops. We're talking from that basis. But I think it's really important to note that the speed at which you can get up, we see lots and lots. I'm sure everybody has got examples, maybe even in your alliance, of players that are up 36, 37, 38, even 39, ready to push to 40, that really their accounts are at a level of like a 31, 32, because the progression has just become so much better due to the influx of
I
materials.
didn't think we were going to mention this, because this is going to be exactly my point. I played this game the way Scopely wanted me to play it. Domination events, boom. BP events, boom. working on my Stella, working on my Frankie, working on my Vidar. And I got to the point where I got to 39 within 12 months and I didn't even have an epic ship. So I was stuck. It's not a strategic stopping point. I was literally stuck. So the game is pushing you along much faster. And if you get diverted by spending time on your Stella or your Frankie, because my Frankie was up there, my Stella was up there, and my Vidar was up there, I didn't have an epic. My ship was a 32, exactly what you've just said.
And I think that's I think we could take a positive from that. I think we take a positive from that Scopely won't really allow you to move up unless you're ready, due to that one particular requirement of having an epic ship. Obviously, we know that the Ascension event has been able to complete an epic armada. You don't even need to start it. You've just got to be a participant within the epic armada on a Friday for you to be able to get your Ascension keys to move up to Ops 40. But there is something really, really telling in what Minnie's saying there about the ease at which it is to get to 39, but then correlating that completely with what Stu is saying is that you need to be mindful of what your tasks are going to be once you press that button, because there's no going back. There's no undo button. You can't control Z your ops building. Do you know what I mean? You can't do that. So I think it's really important that people do actually focus on what's coming up before they do press the button. Even though we're saying don't sit there for months, I think it's really important as well that you actually think about the requirements and things of moving up.
And I think things like this oh, sorry, Stewie, after you.
So I was going to say it's not a new problem, Lube. If you remember, you think back to the old BSL days. I don't know if you remember someone we had called Geordie, I think his name was, and he rushed ahead. He was the top guy in our alliance, and we're going back 3.5, maybe 4 years now. Okay, and he literally got to a point where he couldn't play the game. He was stuck because he couldn't do anything that he needed to do at the level that he'd pushed to, and he quit. He quit the game.
He did quit, and then he tried to come back, didn't he? And by that time, he'd lost it all because he just didn't have the ability to keep up and catch up. And that's a topic for another pod, I'm sure. Returning players, do enough to try and keep hold of returning players. That's maybe another really good topic for future, because coming back when you've missed 6 months, you've missed so much worth of growth, research, and natural power creep. You've missed that happens naturally every day that we all do. That's maybe something else to talk about later. But diving back, I think it would be really good for us just to sort of put a bit of a shelf on this. I think we've all given our opinions. I think they're all really valid, but maybe just give everybody a couple of key pointers, something that you think is really important, maybe the top 2 things that are most important to you that people should focus on before going to Ops 40. Obviously, we're talking specifically about the 39 to 40 jump. So, Silvers, what do you think are your 2 main key milestones that you would need to hit before you could advise a player to go from 39 into the G4 economy at Ops 40?
I would say a tier 6 or tier 7 G3 epic, whether that's the Enterprise, the Augur, or the D4. It doesn't need to be maxed like it was previously recommended 1.5, 2 years ago. Mid-level, decently tiered G3 epic. And I would say a triple faction lock at 10 million is key.
So the first lock for all 3 factions, and then obviously every your epic ship up to that sort of requirement. Stewie, what do you think? 2 top things that you would recommend to anybody?
I would echo the rep for sure, and I would probably be a little bit more specific on the ship and actually say the Enterprise. Okay. Out of the 3, and if you're only going to build them, I would say build the Enterprise, because even in my mid to high 40s, I was using the Enterprise as a meat shield in mid to high level solos and things like that, using Yuri crew and stuff like that. And that ship is so much more powerful than its grade. There's nothing really in that sort of area that's going to carry you until you get to your specialty ships like your Talios, etc. So I would say Enterprise, and that's what I'm going for on my free-to-play account.
Sounds good. What about yourself, Minnie?
I would say keep an eye on your ships. Ignore your base. not ignore, I don't mean ignore it, but you can always shield your base and keep up with it later. Keep an eye on the faction ships. I got lost in the specialty ships, and I am in awe of the 34s that got an epic when I was struggling at 39. So keep an eye on your faction ships as you're going through. The Borg cube makes that easier now because you can't upgrade your Borg cube without having the faction ships alongside. And exactly like the others, I'll echo that until you're ready to go up and hit the Zindi, hit the silence, don't do it.
Don't do it.
And that's a great point about the Borg. The Borg is giving people a sort of a barrier to being able to upgrade that ship and forcing people into doing more with their faction ships, which I don't think can do anything but actually help people out. And I mean, if I was going to give my two things, I'm going to sort of counter Mini a little bit, I think, and I'm going to say about specialty ships. For me, the 30s are the area up where you've got so many specialty ships to be working on, whether that be the Discovery that you want to be getting to Ops 40 to get the speed ups. Because if you're not got a max Discovery by the time you hit Ops 40, then you won't be getting the big speed ups. Now, I'm not saying don't go to Ops 40 without having a max Discovery. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying really make sure that you're not ignoring things like your Discovery. Your Stellar will give you fantastic efficiency researches for that sort of a level. Yes, there's a lot more when you start getting higher up in the researches and things, but at that level, efficiency is so important because as much as the economy has improved, the more that you can save in terms of resources, materials, time, with speed and stuff like that, which in essence is going to save latinum, which you're going to use a lot more of in the 40s. Your specialty ships are so important. And the other one that I'll throw in there is the Vidar. So obviously your Vidar is going to be a ship that you unlock at Ops 28, and you can change that into a Talios providing you've maxed your Vidar at 35. And if you've done
You
that,
unlock the Vidar at 25, Lube.
Sorry, the Vidar is 20. There we go. That
I had to unmute because I was muted, so I had to unmute to make sure that you heard me.
That's okay. That was my first test of the day, and Silver's passed. Yes, so you can get the Vidar at Ops 25. So you've got 10 levels to max it out before you get to 35, which is the key part to this, where you can exchange that in essence for a Talios. And when I say exchange, I don't necessarily mean that because you will get to keep your original Vidar. You don't have to scrap it or anything like that to get your Talios. But Stewie mentioned last podcast, so definitely really good thing to go back and read. Go back and listen to. Is that the Talios is such a versatile ship and it's such a long-ranging ship with regards to ops levels that Stewie still uses it as his main daily driver at 54. And I'm talking about a ship that you're going to be getting Ops 35. So it's so important to focus, in my opinion, on your specialty ships, whilst, as Minnie says, keeping one eye on your faction ships just to make sure that you've got the grunt and the power, because the specialty ships at that sort of a level are not going to be your big, bulky cannons. Do you know what I mean? They're going to be stuff that you're going to be using for loops, etc. And my second big one is, I think Silver's already mentioned it, is triple faction 10 million lock. Triple faction 10 million lock. And I think that's super important for you so that you're getting abundance of credits. And if you can get it locked at 35, 36, 37, you can just complete all the way through there from Ops 36, or whenever you get it locked, you can just continue to claim every single daily and just build up a raft of faction credits, which will become a bottleneck when you move into the 40s. So start collecting at that early stage, because after 34, you don't use faction credits again, and apart from with officers, until you get to 42, when you get your next faction ship, unless you get the miners at 41.
And that was going to be my next point, is for those overachievers that are staying at 39 a little bit longer or want to continue grinding the rep, you can work on getting one or two factions up to 140 million reps so you can unlock your G4 uncommon when you get to 42 easily, so you don't have to wait on the rep.
Absolutely. And I suppose one final little, honourable mention is not to ignore the Xborg faction. I suppose the Xborg faction that you unlock at 38, you want to be heavily working on that with things like your sweeps and stuff to make your dailies and all that sort of stuff that much easier when you move into the 40s. And the reason that is so important is because so much content opens up at 40 that you want to be minimising the amount you've got to do of old stuff, such as just by completing your dailies, going out and killing 7 freebooters does all of your swarm dailies and does all of your faction dailies as well. So stuff like that is also probably a really good honourable mention. Anybody want to throw in any more super honourable mentions before we move on from the topic of camping at 39?
Meridians.
Meridians again, yeah, the TC tree is huge. And obviously remember that you get the Meridian again at Ops 25. The only sourcing path for the Meridian is through event stores at the moment. That's the only way to get it for free. So if you don't have a Meridian, next time the event store rolls around, you need to pick up one, if not two of those to get mining your isogen for that tree. Okay, so that is our STFC topic, camping at 39. We've done that in, I think, record quick time. And I hope you've got our general vibe there that what we're trying to say is basically don't, but we're also throwing the caveat in that don't camp at 39, get ready at 39, do a bit of a strategic stop, get caught up on what you need to do, everything that the team has thrown at you there, and then obviously make that push because you will not regret it by moving away and doing it that way. We're now going to move on
Can I
to...
make a
Yeah,
make
sure.
a special mention?
Mm.
Shout out John Connor.
I don't know why he did that, but yeah, absolutely fantastic. Hi, John.
John Connor, never heard of her.
Never heard of her. Okay, right. I think we've done that one to death. I think we can move on to the next section. So this is a brand new segment. It is something that we are going to roll out every single podcast, and we are calling it the Freedom and Reason section. This is where we take apart the differences between the UK and the US culture, and we have got a fantastic bit of intro music, which I'm going to introduce to you now. And here we go with that. Before we actually start on this, I want comments. How amazing is that for a theme tune?
It's brilliant.
That's it gets me every time how slow the British or the English anthem is as compared to the US.
He's getting a dig in there, Elliot. He knows he's outnumbered. He knows he's
Really
he's
is,
out.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
Outnumbered.
He knows he's
Outmanned.
outnumbered tonight.
Outgunned.
3 Brits to 1 Yank. But obviously we are going to discuss this, and we're going to be talking about getting rid of you, aren't we, Silvers? That's what the topic of tonight is.
Yes. Yep.
Tell me why
He's
you're
a
getting
bit
rid of
unfair.
you.
He's only Yank.
So
Getting rid of you.
getting rid of you, Silvers. Tell me about it.
In the American culture, we have removed the letter U from a number of British words that we deemed unnecessary, such as color, or honor, or humor, or splendor. And those are just a few examples.
So what's obviously saying is obviously he's taken a language that they decided that they wanted to adopt, and they've decided to change it for the further worse. Do you know what I mean? They've decided just to butcher it and change it. I mean,
Shortcuts.
we all know full well that all they're going to do is take a shortcut to make it a little bit easier. Stewie, what's your take on it? Why do you think they've got rid of the U? Why do you think they've incorrectly decided to start spelling words incorrectly?
Look, I'm one of those. I'm a live and let live guy, and I'm quite happy for them to be wrong, and and let them be wrong in their own little way. It's fine. I don't mind.
So what do you think gave you the right? Obviously, we can all pick on you, Silvers, because you're in the Yank here at the moment. What do you think gave you the right to actually change the spelling of something?
I mean, we have our own government, right? So who's to say that we can't make changes? There's tons of other changes besides just the U that we'll cover on later segments.
But you think
who's to say that we can't make changes?
But taking words out and jumbling around, you get to that point, don't you, where you might end up. You imagine if you arrested somebody for burglary. Do you know what I mean? You start taking a couple of letters out and jumbling stuff up, you end up arresting them for buggery. Do you know what I mean? You've got to factor these sort of things in. That words are spelt in a specific way for a reason, and by changing them, what you could potentially do is lead to some really bad things down the line. Have you ever thought about that as an American? Have you ever thought about trying to revolt against the US government and get them to go and put the U back into these words where they belong?
In other places, yes, but not in regards to the U.
Oh, go on then. Give us an example of something that you think that we should change back, where you know that you're in the wrong and they should correct it back to its original standing.
This is going to be very controversial to all the rest of the Yanks out there, but because I'm an engineer, because I'm a scientist, I'm going to say that we should be on the metric system. Put that out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh. You want rid of
But
freedom units.
back to the topic at hand, though. Let's not get carried
Here's
away.
something I've realised.
Go
Here's something they get rid of the U, but then they stick W's and Y's in all their name places, like Wyoming and Wichita.
Yeah, so
It's like we
yeah.
don't like the U, but we like the W.
So it's like they've taken it out because obviously if you say the word colour, you can't hear the U in it, can you? You say humour, you can't hear the letter U in it. So they've done that to make
simpler. We're making an improvement.
Yeah, but Minnie has a good point. Wyoming. Does that need it in there? Wichita. Do they need Y's in them?
Well, Wichita doesn't have a Y.
Oh, Minnie, come on, you've thrown me under a bus there. Throw me under a bus
Get rid
there.
of the U and have the W. It's.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of the places we got Westminster. That's it.
Well, we've got West Virginia.
I don't think you can really call it Est Virginia, though, can you? I don't know if that really goes down if you take the W out of it. But no, I just find that obviously the things have been chopped and changed, and sometimes I think there's just no necessity to do it. And one thing that really bugs me is spell check. When I try and spell check stuff, and it tries to put Z's in things that has an S in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why does it do
That's
that?
an annoying one.
You what? Sorry.
That's an annoying one. Surprise. Yes, that was a surprise. I wanted an S.
Yeah, surprised has a Z in it. And there's other things. There's just so many letters that you've changed around, and it may sound like a Z, but it's spelt with an S. Do you know what I mean? Let's just get it right, and let's just make sure that it all works. Because I don't think with the dictionary needs to be rewritten in multiple different languages. I don't think it's necessary. But that's it. We're trying to get rid of the U. That's our petition for Silver's position. We want to keep. I want to keep you, Silvers. I know you want to get rid of me, but I'm trying to keep you, and I think we should petition to get the U put back in the American dictionary.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard pass on our side, but we thank you for the effort.
Maybe in a few weeks when we've got a slightly larger reach. What do you think?
Alternatively, what we can do is adopt the same philosophy and take the U out of the name and just SS Silvers.
Yes, because that could.
I
don't even go by this tag in game anymore. I'm just
practice what you preach. Practice what you preach.
So that was our first section on freedom and reason. I hope you found it entertaining, obviously, as we explore the cultural differences between the US and the UK. And we are now going to move on to our next topic. So we're going to talk about our Star Trek topic, and I love this one. So the topic of the pod this week for the Star Trek segment is all about the next generation. And what I've asked the panel to do is to come up with their top 3 episodes of the next generation and why. Now, I expect there to be a little bit of overlap in here, and I'm going to ban a couple of episodes. I'm going to ban a couple of episodes from being used in this list. And the panelists don't know I'm going to ban these because there's 2 episodes that I think are absolutely superb, and I think more than one person will pick them. So to do that, I'm going to get rid of them. And they are All Good Things, parts 1 and 2. So don't try and get me on a technicality that you're doing all good things, part 2. And Best of Both Worlds, part 1 and part 2. I'm going to get rid of both of those out of the running. Now, I know that may have messed some of you up because you never knew that I was going to do that. But I'm going to start with you, Minnie, and I'm going to get you to name I'm going to get you to give me your top 3, apart from the discounts, your top 3 episodes of The Next Generation and why.
And if you can, give a brief summary of the episode so we know which it is, just not based on the title.
I can do that. So my first one is The Naked Now, because it's when Data and Tasha Yar get together, and it is just hilarious. And I love the fact that it comes up again and again and again throughout the entire seasons of Data's encounter with a woman. So that's my first one.
8 years, 7 days, 16 seconds, 23.
Exactly.
That was a quiz question, by the way. So
It was
anybody
a
that
quiz.
got
It was.
that right on the quiz, I am very, very impressed. Very, very impressed. But no, I totally understand that. It's exploring another side of data that we don't really see again, isn't it? Totally understand that.
And it's so early on as well.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because Tasha
I
was in
didn't
it.
realise until I googled it how early on it is in the season. It's season 1.
Yeah, well, Tasha dies at the end of season 1.
Tasha didn't make it to
Yeah.
season 2.
And that was
So that's my first one.
that was a dispute, wasn't it, between she didn't feel like she was doing enough. I think she said that they could have put her, I think her exact words, and I may be quoting her here, so quote in quotations. She said that they could have just put like a poster of her up in the tactical position, and nobody would ever have known that she wasn't there. I think they were like her exact words, which basically
Why
meant
we
to
lost
her.
the first Doctor as well.
Yeah, Beverly.
They
Obviously,
reckon
Beverly.
that the females didn't feel like they were getting the screen time and the stories the same as the male cast.
And it's interesting. And obviously, we got Dr. Crusher back, which I think was a thing for the better. Pulaski or Crusher, Stewie? If you had to pick?
Crusher all the way. Yeah, Crusher all the way.
Silvers?
Yeah, Crusher.
Minnie?
Crusher.
Yeah, so we're thinking that was a good deal all to go. Right, number 2, Minnie.
Deja Q.
Okay.
Because I did not like Q when they first came into it, obviously with the High Court and the judging, but Deja Q, it brought out the fun side in him. So he tells Picard that he's lost his powers and he's no longer a Q, and that brings the enemies calling at the door, and it's a big ploy, but it's a gimmicky side of Q, which I didn't like him at the beginning, so it was nice to see that side. And again, it's something that carried on through, right through to Voyager.
Absolutely. No, I get it. Yeah, get that. Number 3.
And now you're going to make me the third one. And actually, this isn't too bad. It's the firstborn, where Alexander, Worf's son, reaches the age, and it is the interaction between Worf and his son.
So you think seeing a different side, seeing a different side to him
again, exactly. And I think that's one of the things I've loved throughout the Star Trek genre is the other side, like a sneak peek into the other side. We've got it with Data, Q, and obviously Worf. So they're my 3.
I mean, they call that character development, don't they? They call that sort of building the character in and actually giving them a backstory rather than just being what they was designed to be as a character, like on the bridge in the Star Trek example. And obviously trying to get more of the backstory and understanding deeper family roots and stuff like that. I think it does add another dimension to the show.
It kept it running, didn't it?
I agree. Totally agree. Right, Stewie, 1 to 3. What we got?
Right, it's funny that you took those 2. Did 3 lists. I did 2 episodes that I thought were great and didn't want to pick, and they were the 2 that you banned. Then I picked my 3 that I actually want to submit, and then I've got some honourable mentions that if we've got time at the end, I'd like to throw in there as well. My first of the 3 is The Inner Light, which is the episode where Picard gets zapped and he gets sent back, or basically into another civilization, and he lives an entire life in 20 minutes in real time. And it was their way of basically making sure that people knew that they existed ever. And I just thought it was a really good piece of storytelling. It pulled at the heartstrings. It was very good. You could see how conflicted he was in it, and just the whole thing was just beautiful. Really, really, really good episode.
I agree, and it gave him the life that he was never going to have in his normal side. I mean, he had a wife, he had kids, he ended up having grandkids. It was like it was something that's totally the opposite of everything that we see from Picard in every single series and episode.
Married to Starfleet.
Yeah, added another dimension. No, totally agree. Great episode. Number 2.
Yeah, good episode. Number 2 is Tapestry, which is where Q gives. Sorry, mate. Q gives.
I picked that one too.
The
dear.
option, I won't fill it in too much, so you guys have something to talk about. But Q basically allows him to go back in time and change things. And I'll let you guys take a little nibble at the cherry there when it comes to you. And then my third is, well, I say my third, it's actually my top one out of those three. I did them in reverse order. Is Measure of a Man,
Oh,
which I thought. Do you have that one as well? Did you?
two out of three that I got. I'll have to think. I'll have to think of some more. I've got some others in reserve, but Christ,
It's an amazing piece of storytelling. I love the fact that they got Riker to do the prosecution side. The way it was created, the whole story behind it, you really felt for this android as if he was a human, because you were basically led to believe he was a sentient, if you like. But I think the thing that makes this most special is, I think it's generally agreed with all of us fans, Next Gen weren't particularly strong. I mean, there were some good stories here and there, but there were more lows than highs, I'd say. And this just stood out amongst all of them as such a masterpiece. It was a very, very good episode. Really liked the episode.
I think it was really cleverly written as well. I think it was really cleverly written. I think it explored an issue that everybody could relate to, even though androids don't exist. Do you know what I mean? But I think I just think it bled into so many things that culturally was going on at the time and stuff like that. That I just think it was great.
Well, nowadays we have AI. I mean, who's to say we have this argument in the next handful of years with something that wants to be perceived as sentient?
Exactly. I mean, like something that can write a response to an insurance claim. Do you know what I mean? You might end up having that at some point. Yeah.
No, never happened.
Never happened. Never happened. It'll never win anyway. It'll definitely never win.
Again. Yeah, so there's those.
Silvers, over to you before we get Stewie's honourable mentions and my own.
Okay, so my first, I'm going to say Elementary Dear Data, Season 2. This was when Data and Geordi went into the holodeck and did an act in the style of Sherlock Holmes. And I just thought this was a great way to show another side of Data that wasn't just analytical, that wasn't just him being an android. It was role playing. It was investigation, and I really like that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Agreed.
Great episode.
Second, I picked some that I didn't think others would pick, but this one is definitely probably on the radar for a lot of people. This is Darmok.
Yes. That's one of my honourable mentions. Well done.
I picked this just because of how iconic it is in the Star Trek universe. Lots of people know the verses of Darmok and Dalad at Tanagra, and they can even list out the entire phrasing and responses to this way of storytelling that their species uses. And it was interesting watching Picard figure it out and incorporate his own experiences into that style of language, as it was.
God. And the thing is, the episode, as much as I did really enjoy it, not a lot happened, did it? Do you know when you think about not a lot, but it was still a really gripping episode. And whenever it's on, I never skip it, because I think it was Stewie that just mentioned this a second ago. There's so many episodes of TNG when I'm rerunning them through that I do actually just not watch. I know that sounds really bad, but I just sort of skip them out and I don't bother watching them again. And it's, I don't know. I just think there's so many, and that could be one of them that people could think, there's not much action in it. But it's still got that excellent Darmok and Shalad. It's one of the biggest GIFs memes ever going, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's well known within the Star Trek universe. There's just like what that means.
Yeah,
indeed.
It's very good.
Number 3?
And my third, I was going to pick Tapestry because I liked seeing more of Picard's backstory, but I'll be different and I'll choose another one. I'm going to choose Clues from season 14.
Very good. Season
and
14. Wow.
Sorry, it's episode 14, season 4. Sorry, I read that wrong
Sorry,
in my notes.
correction.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get you. But this is when Data is the only crew member that is not knocked unconscious, and he inadvertently is lying to the crew, or as they would take it. He actually had it as part of an oath that he had made to not tell them the truth. But I just thought it's another interesting story with Data and how he's an android but not an android at the same time.
No, I agree. I think it was a really good episode. I really like the fact that, like, it was them. I quite like the time travel episodes. I do quite like the time travel ones. Obviously, this one was like the growth of Dr. Crusher's plants and beards and stuff like that. There's loads of different little things, weren't they, in there that made you think, what on earth is going on here? I mean, is Data a traitor? Is he a clone? Do you know what I mean? It actually it was a puzzle, wasn't it, until right at the end when you actually figured out what was going on.
Indeed.
No, I really liked it.
It was a great episode.
They've touched on similar sort of things within Next Gen and also in Voyager, where they've had crew members that have been left alone to do something. They've done it with Seven, if I'm not mistaken. They did it with, and I like those episodes as well because you really get to in-depth look at the actual character themselves and how they react, and you get to know them better, I think.
You do, and that's one of the big strengths of Star Trek. Having non-humanoid species means, or having non-humans as races, it allows you to have things that would affect a human not affect other people, and it allows them for character development, even though the majority of main characters are all human, obviously being the Starfleet officers, but we've got obviously the EMH, we've got obviously Phlox, who doesn't get affected by certain things, there's Seven, obviously, who's the Borg. Do you know what I mean? There's all these different things, as you say, that are open up for additional storylines, isn't they? And I do think that's really good. No, awesome. So moving on to my 3 then. I'm really chuffed. You did take one of them, but I've substituted another one of them in. My first one is Yesterday's Enterprise. So Yesterday's Enterprise is one where we revisit, ironically, talking about Tasha Yar. So it basically throws the Enterprise back into, well, it throws them into like another dimension where they're more of a warship. And I really like to see the difference, obviously, with it being like more of a military-esque type ship as opposed to a pure ship of exploration and things like that. I quite like seeing that other side of Starfleet. Sort of, it's as close to TNG came to the mirror universe, isn't it, really? Sort of seeing those other sides. And it was nice to see Tasha Yar come back and how she interacted. I loved the Guinan element. And obviously the sacrifice that she made of staying with them, with all that sort of thing. And I really enjoyed Yesterday's Enterprise. Anybody got any comments on that?
A good episode.
Great
Strong.
choice.
Yeah, strong choice.
My next one was Chain of Command. Now, I realize this is so Chain of Command with Captain Edward Jellicoe was the one that was terrible, wasn't it? I should have saved that for Christ.
You should have saved that for never.
I should have saved that for never and never done that again. I may even edit that out. I'm definitely not going to edit that out. But yeah, so Edward Jellicoe comes, he takes control of the Enterprise D, becomes the captain of it. And to be fair, he's a little bit of an ass, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's absolutely... He's nothing like...
Nicely.
It is putting it nicely, keeping everything PG-13. But he takes command of the Enterprise. Picard goes off on a mission, and this is the episode where we get Four Lights. One of the most used, most gifted, most remembered parts of TNG, in my opinion, where Picard is tortured for information, and where there's obviously 4 lights up there, and he says there are 5 lights, and I just think it's a really good episode with character development. We're seeing Picard being really weak all the way through TNG. Picard is this predominantly strong leader, and we see him reduced basically to a naked bloke being tortured by a Cardassian who's starving, hungry, not drank for ages, and is at the point of breaking. Do you know, if the Cardassians hadn't come in right at the end there, once he'd been released and freed, he was going to tell them everything. Do you know what I mean? It got to the point where they'd actually broke Picard, and it's pretty much one of the only times that ever happens. No, we can do spoilers for something that came out in the 90s, Minnie. Come on. If somebody hasn't caught up on TNG yet, do you know what I mean? They get no sympathy from me.
If they're listening to this show and they haven't watched TNG, then that's totally on them.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's the ruling.
Even I have watched TNG, and that came out before I was born.
Oh, don't.
Okay, so Chain of Command was my second one, and my third one was Pegasus, and again for a similar sort of reason, because I think it sort of countered everything that we knew about certain people. So Pegasus was an episode where an admiral who was Will's old captain, I'm trying to think of his name and I can't remember, Eric. Captain, I can't remember his name. I'll think it'll come to be in a Prestman, Admiral Prestman. So Admiral Prestman comes onto the ship, and he's now an admiral, and he basically tries to find an old ship which had contravened the convention that they had with the Romulans not to develop cloaking technology, and this ship was a Federation ship that had what's called a metaphasic cloak, and that cloak not only allowed you not to be able to see the ship, but in theory it allowed you to pass through solid objects like rocks. And the Pegasus had got stuck basically in halfway materialized in an asteroid, and they went to try and retrieve this technology, which was obviously a breach of all these different protocols and processes and agreements that they had with other races. And it was nice to see, obviously, that Will at one point had been that job drunk, as it were, and that Federation drunk on the loyalty to his captain at the time and to the Federation, that he followed him even though that the decisions were wrong. And we got to see how Riker had changed from being a young ensign into a capable commander and things like that, to the point where he was able to stand up against now an admiral and say, no, what you're doing is wrong. And obviously it all ended up badly for Pressman, and obviously the technology was never developed anymore by the Federation as part of that. But I just thought that was a really good episode that explored sort of Riker's past. It explored a little bit of how Riker had changed over the years. And this is one of the final episodes. This is a season 7 episode. So I just think it was a really good way to sort of see how Riker had grown. And obviously we know ultimately he goes on to become an admiral, captain ships and all that sort of thing. And I think it just shows a little bit of his character development. So they were my 3. So Stewie, you said you had a couple of honourable mentions. Obviously, has anybody got any comments on anything before we go to Stewie's honourable mentions, unless we've covered them all?
What my honourable mention was one that you actually said, Stewie, which was Measure of a Man. And that's one that I purposely didn't pick because I thought everybody was going to pick it. But that's one of the episodes that I had written down on my list when I was going through picking, but decided against picking just because I figured everybody else is going to pick this one.
I did think that would get picked by others, to be honest.
I really liked the episode, but it was just at the point where I, like you lot, thought a few other people would pick it. And the question is it one of my favourite? Was it one of my top 3? If I was going to default to the ones that I would watch, I default to the ones that are banned, and I default to the ones that I picked and that the other people picked, because I find them the most exciting. That one's a great episode because it's written very well, but it's not high drama, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? There's no like space battles and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It's a great episode. It's written fantastically well, but I wouldn't say it was one that I would just choose to watch on a whim if I was only going to sit and watch one episode. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. The 3 that I picked were all story-bound episodes, because that's what I like out of the episodes. I like an episode that's got a deep story. I can sit down and I can just concentrate 100% on what's being told and take it all in. And that's also the reason why I've got my 3rd honourable mention, because the 3 I had were Damok, Chain of Command, and of course Iborg, where we got to meet Hugh. That was an amazing episode, and even to this day when I watch it, I get a chill right at the end when they think they've lost him back to the collective, and as he walks past them, he turns and looks to them, and then walks forward, and that gives me a chill even today when I watch that scene, because I think, oh god, he's still there. Hugh is still
And I love the fact that obviously they have, and again, we're not going to do any huge spoilers here because obviously some of this is a little bit later on, but I love the fact that they revisited that element of Hugh. Do you know what I mean? I'm glad that Hugh was revisited in the future in Star Trek. I liked that because
Yes,
I think that was a
absolutely.
storybook that was left open from that episode. I think it was nice that it was, again, revisited from there.
Yeah.
So that's our topics. Has anybody got any final comments on that topic before we look to finish?
No, I think this is a good choice for a Star
very
Trek
good
topic.
choice.
Amazing. So fantastic. Remember, guys, you can download this podcast on all major platforms. Please share it out with your teams and your alliances. If you are on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 6 out of 5 star review. That would be fantastic. We do plan to read out some reviews in future shows. Check out our Discord. Obviously, you can access all the tools that are produced by Stewie Doo, the charts that are made from Silvus, and basically you can just chat with us and obviously suggest topics, as I've mentioned before, that you want us to talk about in future episodes. That would be great. Check out all of our other channels. Obviously, myself and Minnie are on Twitch. Search Minnie Mabel or It's Lube on Twitch if you want to catch us live as we play STFC and other games. Obviously, myself, I am on YouTube. If you want to check that out, you just look up It's Lube on YouTube and you can check out all of our STFC content on there. Please give us some feedback. We want your questions. We want those topics, as I've mentioned, and that will be really good to get from you so that we're giving you the content that you want, obviously, us to talk about. Visit itslube.com and obviously check out all of our merch on there. We have got podcast-specific merch coming soon. Wink, wink, Candy, who's not here, so I can't wink at him any harder. But also consider becoming a member at itslub.com for your chance to appear on the pod either monthly if you go for the Chief Nutter Roll or quarterly if you go for the Nutter Roll as well. If that supports the show, it helps the production, and it really helps us keep everything going and keep the lights on here. And I want to say a massive thank you to all of our members, obviously, who have chose to done that. So we've got Trek Diva, we've got Deja, we've got Sorella, and we've got Minnie Mabel. I want to say a huge shout out and a huge thank you to them, obviously, for being members of the show. That's it for tonight. I hope you have all had a really fun time. And remember, guys, absolutely everything is better with Loeb. Take care. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.